Hey, and welcome back to another Creepypasta complaining podcast with me, ClericofMadness.
And Nick. How's it going, Gil?
Hey, today we're here to complain about quality standards and the wiki format.
This is more of your complaint with the format, because I'm not really sort of involved with the whole wiki stuff. But it's certainly a problem you've been having.
Oh, yeah. You're just along for the ride. Like we said in the last episode.
You're pretty much holding me hostage.
Well, yeah. If I had my prop gun here, I'd cock it, but I don't. So
this is very poorly planned out.
Story of my life.
Yeah.
I mean,
also of mine. However, I've slightly improved it by getting a better job.
I made the wiki. Nothing about my life was planned out.
You're not wrong.
So, I'm not here to rag on like specific sites, but a problem I've noticed in the Creepypasta fan base is that when people get their stories deleted, like 20% of the time, maybe less, want to go off and make these side wikis that are like Jim's Creepypasta Wiki, where they're like, we don't delete anything. And it's always hilarious to see, like, after 3 years, they have all 5 of their poorly written stories on there and nothing else.
I think the major problem that you're having, that you are having, and specifically my understanding of it, is that where these people come from is a tradition where these sites function a lot like your No Sleep and all that sort of stuff, but it more of like, the best way I can describe it is like fanfiction.net, where they don't really delete any stories. They only delete stories if you've not been on the site for a certain amount of time, let's say about 2 years, I don't know.
Yeah, we do have the quality standards page, and that is something people take exception to most of the time when they don't write things that are what could be charitably described as in the English language. Like, the words they write may have all of the letters from English, but they may not be in the proper order to be considered English words.
Okay, I was wondering where you were going with that, because you just kind of stopped in the middle there.
Story of my life.
It's that sort of thing where, like, they expect all their stuff to be posted. More than anything else, I remember you talking about, and I got the idea of more fanfiction.net, because you do not allow stories that are not finished on there, and I think that's probably where people get more booty blasted than anything else, I think.
Oh, God, yes. Like, I like to take a minute, just sit right there, and I'm going to explain why we don't let unfinished creepypastas on the site.
Oh boy, it's story time with Uncle Cleric.
It is. So, Happy Appy is something I let happen. I let that happy happen, and still regret it to this day. Shoutouts to UCA, who actually slogged to that whole damn thing and all of its sequels. I still haven't read it.
I have listened to a grand total of like an episode, got kind of bored listening to it. Despite the jokes, it was still somehow extremely boring, and just never went back.
It's Dronian, man. He went far too long. But right around that time, I don't have...
You could say that he droned on.
Yeah, I was avoiding that joke. It's bad when even I avoid a shitty joke.
You see, I don't care enough.
But right around the time where he had started posting that, I don't have my notes here, or I could give you an exact date of when the first part of that was posted. But
professionalism, people.
Right? Been doing this for 8 years. Dates and timelines are like, I know them, but I don't know them.
Although you do, you know, you have them written down somewhere, you just don't actually bother keeping them in your head.
Yes.
Because I know you have the literal entire history of creepypasta written down on a piece of paper somewhere.
Of course I do. I gotta keep these things straight in case somebody comes at me sideways. Or like, this was created so-and-so. I was like, no, sir. Little side note, I unfortunately found out recently that the original version of the Jeff the Killer creepypasta that people know, not the Seuser one, was posted on the wiki.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I was too. It was like 4 a.m. I had work, and I still had to take a consolatory shot of a scotch.
I think you don't have scotch. You have Fireball whiskey.
I have scotch. Remember, we went and bought some.
Oh yeah, yes, you did buy that extremely cheap one, didn't you?
Well, yeah.
I'm sorry,
I'm extremely cheap. I want to get drunk. I don't want to taste. I just want to taste fire. That's why I bought Fireball. I wanted to taste the sin. But yeah, steering this train back on track, we implemented a policy of no unfinished stories because we were getting things like, and you can still go and read this on the Trollpasta Wiki, but we had things like the chapters of Minecraft, which was like 1 and 2 sentence. This was a 1 and 2 sentence story about it. Like, I started up Minecraft, chapter 2. I saw some wood and thought I needed some. Chapter 3, Herobrine. This is a work in progress. I'll finish in a few minutes. And then that story was kind of like the last straw, because like I gave them 2 months to finish it, and they never did. And the thing with unfinished stories on the wiki is that in the history of the wiki, even Happy Appy, after like a year or two, I had to be like, Archidronian, this has been 2 years now. You need to finish this, or it's going to be deleted. Because unfinished stories, by and large, never get finished. We even have a specific policy that we are not WordPress. We are not fanfiction.net. We are not your damn word processor. Seriously, this is the internet. You are sitting at a computer. You have a text editor on your computer. You can write an entire story and take as many years as you want to finish it. You don't have to open up the visual editor in Fandom and type out your story and lose it when we delete it because you didn't put any punctuation or spaces in between periods if you did put them.
It's funny because I'm sort of imagining the entire process of these people writing stories the same way a lot of fan fiction writers do. And it's like they will only bother updating their stories if it actually becomes popular. In which case, if it doesn't, they'll just drop it like a light bulb.
Yeah, and that seems to be what happens a lot, is because people will write like we had a policy. I think the original time frame was if you had an unfinished story on the wiki, we'd put a little template on it, and a week from the date posted on there, it would be deleted and you would be warned or banned. And that just was not working because nobody was finishing these. And so we had to be like, all right, blanket policy, no unfinished stories.
Yeah. I also think that there's this the attitude that people don't like these policies come from more of like I said, it came from more of like fanfiction.net and all these other sites. But I think it's also that they don't understand sort of the culture that you and I come from. Because while I understand places where you just shit stories out anywhere like Fiction Press, I also know that a lot of this stemmed from the you wanting to actually archive these sort of stories that were around, especially on like boards like X, where archiving is something of a tradition when it comes to places like 4chan and X.
Well, back in the day, there were no archives. Like nowadays, you have board archives that go back for I don't know. I think like a week or so, or maybe a month. But originally, X, like I was a hard X and CK user. That's the cooking food board. They have the best shitposts in the world.
By the best shitpost, he means probably actually shit something put in a frying pan.
Yes, I think I've seen 3 of those. They used to have cooking with semen threads.
Honestly, I'm not surprised in the slightest.
There's actually a book about that.
Again, I'm not surprised, but also it's like this is the same site where the idea of submerging like plastic pony toys. It's like.
Ugh, don't remind me.
I have seen all those brown.
Oh, let's not include that part.
I'm going to bleep that shit just because it'd be funny.
Yes, but yeah, back in the day, back in the I think 2009 is when like Creepypasta upticked on X, because I believe X was created in 2007 or 2008 in response to 7chan's X board, because Creepypasta, the term, was either 2006 or 2007. Again, I don't have my notes. But X was so bogged down with, hey guys, what Creepypasta had Bart Simpson not being alive? Actual post. It's dead Bart, spoiler alert. But like, I started up a thread about archiving all of this, and it was either going to be Wikidot or Wikia, and I couldn't fucking figure out how to use Wikidot because that site is garbage. And so I was
now
like,
it's gone, like forever.
Yeah.
So you just kind of randomly lucked out there.
Yeah, I did. And so August 8th, 2010, when a day I had nothing else better to do with my life, and then for the next couple of months, I made the wiki and just started pulling everything I could find from X, and I had a couple of people from the original thread that I had made where it was either I had made it or somebody else was talking about it. I was like, you know what, I'll just take the damn initiative. Because, as much as I lament myself for making the wiki, it was sheer inevitability. Somebody was going to do it. I just happened to be the person who pulled the trigger first. It was originally an archive for all those stories like Dead Bart and the original Jeff the Killer and just all that other sort of stuff that people were looking for, just as a way to sort of clean X out of all of these. Hey, what creepypasta is this? Because Wikia had a search feature. You could now Google for what creepypasta this was, because also at the time, creepypasta.com had shut down because I guess no one was using it or server costs were too high. I can't remember.
I'd imagine it'd probably be server costs too high, especially if you're talking about like the height of the creepypasta popularity.
Yeah, 2010. Well, shortly after I had created the wiki, I think 2010 or 2011, probably 2012, the New York Times ran an article online about creepypasta, and that's what started the renaissance for creepypasta interest afterward. And I think like shortly thereafter, creepypasta.com came back, but I could be wrong about that.
I have no idea about any of this because I literally heard about like creepypasta from like about a group of 2 people when I was in college, and then I looked at it, it's like, wow, some of these are actually good, but most of it's shit. Let's listen to the shit ones.
Yeah. Originally, it was meant to just be an archive of all the classics, and then it sort of evolved from there, from being like this library of old stories that had already been established and posted, to let's allow people to post their own stuff. And from there came a whole new set of problems, like unfinished stories and poorly written stories. We used to have a wonderful thing called the deletion poll, where instead of just deleting things outright, we put up a poll that would last for like, I think, a week, and it would be a yes, no, should this be deleted, wiki code poll. But those are so poorly designed that after a while, after like a year or so, people started abusing the polls.
I have a feeling that like Hyper Jane the Killer X Mark III edition probably kept on the wiki because of those polls.
Actually, I don't think so. I think Jane the Killer was already there as one of those old archives.
Well, I mean, because I'm thinking of the shitty like rewrites everyone does.
Oh, you'd be surprised actually that people did not much care for those X the Killer knockoffs.
Okay.
Yeah.
I assume that much like fanfiction.net, they will immediately go after everything they masturbate to.
No, but you see, the beauty of the core user base at the time was that the people with the high edit counts that were on the wiki a lot would see these posts and be like, no, this doesn't belong here. This is poorly written. And so we had a core user base that would look at these and go, no, this is terrible. And from that core user base came the progenitor quality standards that I wrote on the wiki. And a couple of years later, they evolved into the current quality standards. And it was really a response to, the polls not working because people were starting to learn that they could exploit them and were using them to keep things that were literal garbage.
Did it not track IP address and stuff like that, so you could just refresh and just do that again?
It didn't track IP addresses. It tracked usernames, I think.
Oh.
Or it did track IP addresses, but you could switch to a different computer and vote again.
I mean, usually you get IP addresses, linked IP address votes usually solves that problem, though, I find. Or at least I've heard.
And we've been struggling ever since. Like, I really was a fan of the community discussion of whether this story should be deleted. But, like, the current way that fandom is now formatted, outside of making a discussion thread for every single story, there's really no way, because I would like to see who is voting. and to be able to look at the usernames and be like, this is obviously the same person. It is Bob the Killer 1, Bob the Killer 2, and Bob the Killer 3. Like, I can see that you are not using the system the way it's intended.
I see.
And, like, the question, too, was, like, if we're going to do this, do we want to have, like, an edit count limit? Like, do we want to have, like, somebody who's edited at least once in a main space article to do this? And, like, going about this just was not feasible. And it still isn't with our, I believe, 4 admins. 4 or 5. The numbers escape me.
I could have sworn it was a lot more, but damn, that's actually pretty low.
Yeah, it's myself, Hillel, Banning, and Christian, and Sloshed sometimes. I don't know where he's gone. So yeah, there's really like 4 admins.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah, we lost Impy. Rest in peace.
All right.
He went to school.
Oh.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but so with our limited admin team, it's just it's not a process we can like safely go over. But we have rollbacks, and we have like a smaller but still core user base who flag things that have like no punctuation or either are written in title case or just no capital letters and that sort of thing. And so, like I've said before, and I'll say it again, I don't feel comfortable judging a story's content worth, only what it's made of insofar as like grammar and spelling and formatting.
You're more comfortable with like judging something on a technical level than you are by a sort of mercurial quality standard.
Correct, because like I've said before, and I'll also say again, like I think that judging story based on content like not being creepy enough isn't something that's going to work in the long run, because times change and the definition of horror does too.
Yeah, it's one of those things where tastes will always change no matter what you do about it.
Yeah, and so like there's still some changes that need to be made to the quality standards currently, but like a lot of it is really solid. Like the proofread this, run it through Grammarly, do something.
At least it has limited the amount of the amount of garbage that gets flown in there. It's not exactly a fine mesh like you would hope for, but it's enough of a mesh to where you can at least pick through the rubble.
Yeah, the quality standards and the abuse filter really have cut back on the amount of deletions that I personally do now that MP's gone, because he used to just wreck shop with deleting things, and I'd have to check deletion logs to see how heavy-handed he was, but like I know there were a lot of complaints about too much deletion and too much based on like story content as far as deletions. But I think the main problem people had with our deletions like a year or so ago was that we were deleting based on content and not overall technical aspects. And
it's a little bit more of an unbiased system now.
Yeah, I hope so. Like, I really want to bring it back to, like, just deleting the technically bad things and then finding a workable system to implement that will help the community to decide, you know, hey, this doesn't meet what we would consider a quality piece of writing.
It's sort of the inherent problem you have with a system that can save the written word, whereas, like, you know, if you think about the sites that we go to on a regular basis, 4chan, the process of keeping these stories alive was more up to the user. So yes, people would copy and paste these stories, but they would keep them on their computer so you could have it to where the ones that were actually popular at the time and people kept track of would be on there. But because you've sort of opened the floodgates, it's sort of created its own problem now. Yeah,
but back in the day of X, people would screen cap good posts. And then there would be creepypasta threads where people would just post screen caps of their favorites. And that's really how the OG creepypastas were spread, through these screen caps, because people, you couldn't share them text-based. Well, you could, but some of them were over the post limit. So you would just have whole threads of nothing but screen caps, and it was delightful. But once we created a text archive for this, people then could make their own and post it, because it is an open, editable wiki format. It's like a library you can go to and then also slide your own books in.
What, you don't do that on a normal basis?
No. Not after the last 5 times I got caught.
Well, as far as it goes, it's one of those things where the problem's probably never going to get solved 100% satisfactory, but it seems that at the moment you're kind of in a position where it's comfortable enough for most people, but for maybe the 1 or 2 special snowflakes you have in your that troll on the wiki, it doesn't work for them.
Yeah, we had a guy recently, I think he's up to 8 bans now on different accounts. Yeah, he did not understand what the quality standards were, and then decided he was just going to literally contact staff about how harsh the rules were. And he did. He used special contact for staff, and then later I think he said he was going to report himself to staff for using multiple accounts, despite continuing to still make more. And like, we get a lot of those people. And like I said at the beginning of this, like, people like to go and make their own wikis and be like, or their own websites and be like, all right, we don't delete anything unless it's like technically bad. And I just want to briefly tell everyone listening that when you do this, you are making the seeds for quality standards. Because if you just let absolutely anything be posted on a new Creepypasta Wiki, eventually the people that read that site, let's say there you have like a core group that goes to your site for your style of content. Like you have Minecraft creepypastas only. And you just allow anything to be posted. And assuming that there are not just kids that read this, eventually they're going to be like, hey, this one's not good. It capitalizes every letter, and it's all caps. Stuff like this shouldn't be posted. There's like 2 more. And so you go and delete those. And you just make a rule that's like, hey, you can't make this in all caps.
I think that another problem you kind of run into is that these people that make these wikis and people that complain about the deletion process is the fact that they don't seem to really understand that there isn't an unlimited space in the wiki servers. Like, there's a lot of space and probably a lot of space on the wiki servers, but let's be for real, if you let everybody, and I do mean everybody, post their own stories in there, eventually you're going to run out of room and you're going to be forced to either delete or somehow suck up to the wiki admins to create more space for all this garbage.
Yeah, but by and large, if you start, like, you have your wiki and you're like, all right, I'm seeing a lot of these posts that are like, there's no punctuation. We're gonna make a rule that's like, no punctuation, no writing stories in all caps. Well, your readers are gonna be like, well, this story doesn't fit here either, but it doesn't use all of this. Like, there's no spaces after periods and it's poorly edited. You should make a rule about using proper grammar. And that's how the genesis of quality standards starts on anything that you have literature on.
But basically, if they are just unless they are very 100% into the we don't delete anything, eventually it's just going to come back to just being the Creepypasta Wiki.
Yeah. And any non-laissez-faire, any non-hands-off approach to managing a library of creepypastas is eventually and inevitably, and I can say this with 100% confidence, is always going to lead to the formation of some sort of quality standards. Because even if you have adult readers of like a No Sleep archive, and you're like, we post absolutely everything from No Sleep bar none, and then people are like, well, this isn't very good. You should, and the moment someone says you should in relations to a story, and you follow through on that, you have created a rule, and you have created a standard of quality. And even if it's no troll pastas, no troll stories, you have already set the seeds in the ground for a quality standard. Because people are going to be like, well, this isn't a troll story, but...
It keeps quality, the sort of quality control standards sort of stack on top of one another. It's that sort of thing where, like, I'm trying to think of the analogy, but I believe it goes something like, if you do something for somebody, you have to do it for somebody else as well.
Yeah. You can't pick and choose. If you're going to delete something, you have to delete all of that something.
Yeah.
Not just one of that something. We have sort of avoided deleting all of those somethings with the historical archive, but things like Jeff the Killer were voted very highly in favor of deleting by the community. And though I, as a bureaucrat, admin, and a user, did not believe that it was in the spirit of what I created, as a founder of the wiki, I did not believe that was in the spirit of what I had created. A wiki, at the end of the day, is still a community. And so I respected the community's wishes, as any respectable community head would, and had it removed. And
I'm amazed by that. Actually, I didn't know you actually believed Jeff the Killer.
yes, somebody started up a proposal. There were hundreds of votes, I think, and it was deleted because the community was like, "Hey, get this gone," and we're like, "Okay."
I feel as though, I mean, I can understand why people want Jeff the Killer to be deleted because it's shit, but I do believe it's kind of important to always keep those sort of things as something of a milestone to understand where things were before so that we can understand where we're going with that sort of thing. But that's just me.
Yeah, I also went ahead and created the Creepypasta Classics wiki, and I believe that is linked if you go look up Jeff the Killer, just so there's still that presence linked to the wiki.
I see.
And that goes somewhere to not, like, wholly just erase it.
I assume it's also not being editable.
Correct. I protected all the pages on there, so I wouldn't actually have to monitor that.
So, do you add anything else, or is it just like all the actual classics everybody knows about?
Yeah, it's just all the classics. We had a historical archive suggested reading, and I just used the MediaWiki import-export tool to grab everything in the historical archive category, throw it on there. It was like 2 clicks. It was great. It was the easiest thing I've ever done.
Well, at least with the amount of like coding I've seen you do, apparently that's nice.
Yes. The MediaWiki export tool takes all of the pages in a specific category, exports them into a document that you can then slot into another wiki.
Well, I'll be damned.
Yeah, it was easier than the process that I was going to go through of actually manually exporting, which thankfully I didn't have to do because that would have taken a long time.
I think, honestly, at the end of the day, if we're going to be talking about the quality standards, you're going to have to understand that if you don't want quality standards, you probably shouldn't be asking for things to be deleted or to be asked to be deleted in the first place or removed. If you really want a complete laissez-faire sort of thing, you should almost have it to where it's just the community has no input. It's that sort of thing where, like, because of course, I will use the example of fanfiction forever. They are very much they're very much a laissez-faire. They do not get involved at all with the community base that they build around.
Yeah.
The only thing that they ever post is stuff on here's an update of the things of the code that we have, and also here's our policies. Which I think their only policy is that if your account's been inactive for a certain amount of time, your account gets deleted and all the stories that you wrote gets deleted.
Yeah, that
is the ultimate laissez-faire sort of thing, but because of how many people are so very actively involved with Creepypasta and how many groups have formed around this for reasons I can't really figure out, but they're being extremely active in it, I don't think you're ever going to get that sort of laissez-faire sort of system anyway.
No, and it's kind of fandom's policy to be a community-forward fandom, because all wikis are supposed to be community-oriented, and like...
Which I find pretty weird, because I always just... Whenever I think of wiki, I don't think of like a community. I think of just like of an archive page, like, you know, like Wikipedia.
Well, yes, but like these are individual fandoms, and fandoms are a community. And so, like, no man is an island unto himself, and nobody can make an entire decision for a community, insofar as like deleting things or standards. But I just want to mention that the standards of quality that we have are not just something I came up with overnight. It's not just something MP or lol skeletons or anybody else just made up on the fly. It is something we discussed with the community and that the community agreed to and agreed upon as a standard for things that they want on a website that they view in their community. And it's not something that we just made up or pulled out of our asses one night.
Basically, if you want the community standards to change, well, you're going to have to change the community.
Yeah.
So it looks like it's in the name.
Yeah. If you want the community's quality standards to change, anybody and everybody is free and clear to go ahead, go on the forums, go ahead and put a proposal post up. It's like, hey, I don't think we should be doing this. I don't think we should be doing that. And we can all take a vote. We have a support, oppose, neutral system for this. Mm. And that's what it's there for. That's what the community is there for, to discuss things, and the discussion forums are there for discussing. We have wiki, we have Site Matters forums for discussing site issues and to propose changes. We had a /D discussion about testing out the new discussion feature, which I still need to go back and look at. And there was also another one where I think Hillel, one of the admins, was like, should we have a background image? And I think the answer was yes to that for some reason.
I have no idea. But I never actually used a forum in my life, or at least not really. But, yeah, this has been a much more in-depth and serious discussion than I was actually expecting, to be honest.
Yeah, the internet is serious business.
Well, hopefully next time we get in front of a microphone, we'll be able to talk about something a little bit less serious. Possibly shit, who knows.
Yeah.
But it's been a fun discussion, I think, and hopefully people will enjoy it. So, next time we see you.
Next time.
Bye!